I think that to make really great music, you have to be familiar with all the music that's been made with before you, or as much as you can get your hands on. And so I think Nickle Creek tries to draw from everything that we've heard.
There will always be the players of traditional music that really hold tightly to how things originated, and I'm so glad for that, because it's always important to have an example of where things came from. But I think in order for anything to stay alive, it has to grow and change a little bit.
Tradition is an awesome thing, and it's not going to go away just because you're building upon it. You know, you can always go back and say, here it is. This is tradition at its purest form and play out.
We are at the House of Blues in Los Angeles on Sunset Strip, and we're getting excited for the Nickle Creek show tonight. It's going to be fun.
I see them and perceive them as three brilliant artists, and they're growing, and they're not limited to any one genre.
Some people think that they're like destroying traditional bluegrass, but I think they're just making it a different style of bluegrass, because they're getting a lot of younger people to come and like listen to the music, which I think is a great thing, because then people turn around and listen to like Bela, Fleck, and Ralph Stanley, and they go back to that. I think that's great.
Wasn't even very traditional, like Bela, Fleck, and Jerry Douglas, and all these other musicians that have really taken acoustic music to places that few have gone.
It's not like we're pushing bluegrass out. I think it's just that more things are coming in, so it becomes less identifiable.
I'm so happy 'cause today I found my friends. It's in my head, and I'm so ugly. That's okay, 'cause so are you.
It's amazing how many people think bluegrass music is 200 years old, when in reality it's a fairly new musical form. It really started with Bill Monroe and his Bluegrass Boys in the 40s. They were all pushing the boundary. It was very progressive music, in the same way that Nickle Creek is progressive today. They've all done their homework, and you can trace their lineage back through Bill Monroe and Earl Scruggs.
This is one of the kinds of music that does have a real continuous tradition that's passed on through older players to younger players. And even though there's a lot of innovation going on all the time, there's always a lot of weight given to the tradition.
Guys like Chris Thile and Sara and Sean in Nickle Creek, they play what they play, but they really know how to play bluegrass music in its most traditional form. They can do it. And that's what sets them apart, and that's what sets the people apart to carry it on to the next level, is they take that with them.
You don't have to move that mountain, just tell me, Lord, to climb it. You don't have to move that stumbling block, just show me the way around it. Well, we must climb a great high mountain to reach God's gracious kingdom, but in His word to find your strength. If you will just believe it.
And it actually kind of puts you into the equation as a little kid, if you can imagine that there are real people playing those instruments, and there are real people writing those songs instead of just that thing that comes out of your radio.
We started playing because we saw so many bands perform, and we just fell in love with it.
The festival served a dual purpose. Not only were they a fun family thing, but it gave them something to work towards, because the contests, they'd have to practice for weeks and weeks, and they would improve and progress.
Festivals all of our lives, so pretty much from the time I was 6, 7, 8 until now, and I've always really enjoyed having an open invitation from a lot of musicians that we really respect to just come and jam and listen and play and talk.
The bluegrass community just love them. They love to watch them, they love to play with them, they love to teach them, and they were just so nurturing.
Those were their lessons. They would jam all night with these masters.
I'm still learning from all these older guys, but then to flip that over and be the mentor, that's kind of a responsibility. I better get it right, because if these guys are paying attention, then they should be getting the right stuff.
Whenever we get together, it's just a complete exchange of ideas. If I teach him one thing, he's probably teaching me 3 in the next sentence.
Anytime you play with a great musician, I try and assume a student role. If Bela and I are trading, I think that my job there is to be studying. Like here we are trading on stage. I always dreamed that I could do that.
One of the coolest things that happens with musicians is they listen to something a whole bunch, and they actually internalize it, and then they spit out their version of it. I've had the experience with Chris of him saying, "Hey, do you ever play that tune, something off some record that I did that I don't even remember?" And he plays back to me my solo from the record, which I improvised, which he never learned. It's just in his head because he listened to it as much as I listened to those old Flat and Scruggs records. It's just in there.
When you're climbing the ladder of being a musician, you never think that you'll be sitting on stage with your heroes and it'll be a normal thing. John Doyle was the guitar player in Solos. They had a huge influence on us because they were doing new things with traditional Celtic music and giving it really youthful energy. It was the same thing we wanted to do with bluegrass. I looked over and it was like, that's him, that's the sound right there, That's that guitar rhythm that we like so much. It's just really very cool.
Nickle Creek is building upon the foundation and adding a new level to it. And they're respectful of their past, but they came up in tradition, and then they decided to, okay, we live in the 21st century now. Why not be in the 21st century and write and play and have reactions from that?
For a long time we were bluegrass, and that's just what we've grown up playing. But after a while, you need to kind of move on and find out who you are musically. That's when we started listening to bands like Counting Crows and Toad the Wet Sprocket and Radiohead. But just because we listen to mostly electric music. There's no reason to adopt their instrumentation.
People sort of associate distorted guitars with angst and aggravation, but it's really what emotion you're putting into whatever you're playing. Even though it's unlikely to be able to just slam on these kind of instruments, that's just what we want to do. We want to run the gamut.
Traditional music to be recreated for each new generation and incorporate what's going on in that time, or to me it won't continue. For instance, Nickle Creek, who is interpreting the music from their perspective and playing and singing about their experience as human beings.
And one of the bad things about being on the road is that not much happens really. It's basically like, you know, living with your family out in the country or something. So every now and then it's a struggle to find material to write about, in which case Chris and I both have written around movies.
Movies present so much in the way of emotions and just character studies. And it's really probably our most effective art form in the way of communication right now. They incorporate music and then show people life.
Chris and Nickle Creek, they're really young. They haven't had their hearts broken yet. So they're going to draw from whatever they can, whether it's a friend of theirs who's going through some trouble or whether it's a movie they saw. They're looking for ways to have life experiences or vehicles to write tunes by.
Anybody see the movie As Good As It Gets? Excellent, not bad. Just to explain, this song that I wrote is sung in the first person, and unfortunately, the main character in As Good As It Gets had some serious issues. He was obsessive compulsive for one, but in addition to that, he was a homophobe and then also didn't like women, which doesn't really leave you with anything. And yeah, so I just wanted to preface this song so that you would know that the views expressed in the song are not those of mine or of Nickle Creek's. Locking doors, spotless pores, finding comfort in a total bore. The number 4 genealogic lore doesn't feel good unless I felt it before. The neighbor's gay, shouldn't be that way. I'm gonna treat him like a person, but not today when I'm old and gray and he's dying of AIDS. Gonna stop by his bed to remind him to pray. Melvin is looking door. He makes everything a chore. I don't really care no more. Melvin is locking doors.
Nickle Creek's playing this game where they come up with a title of a song and then everyone has to go off in their corners and write that song that day.
It was the game. We had to write something that day. You know, and Locking Doors was the title, and so I'm just thinking, what am I going to write about locking doors? And remembered Jack Nicholson's character in As Good As It Gets, and that he always locked his door 4 times, I thought. And I went, 4 rhymes with door, and I just started writing.
Deadline is the mother of invention. It's a great exercise, just keeping your creative juices flowing.
Locking doors, salting sores. When one wimp wins, you'll win the war. Show me some gore, man, I'm so hardcore. But it doesn't feel good unless I felt it beat. Doesn't feel good unless I felt it before. Melvin is locking doors.
Nickle Creek was at West Wilkes High School last year, and they had great reviews from the students and faculty up there. I'm glad they were able to come here. And we appreciate the outreach because the artists that are performing at Merle Fest choose to do that, and they do that for free.
The majority of kids in high school, you know, listen to what they are told they can listen to and still be cool. And we're just kind of wanting to say, screw it, listen to whatever you want to listen to, you know?
We played an afternoon performance for high school, and maybe a third of the kids were African-American kids, and there was white kids, and some of the kids, you know, they said, oh, here's a bluegrass band, so automatically some of the kids went, oh, bluegrass. And then Chris went into Homesick Blues where he raps it really fast on the end of the Fox, and all the African-American kids were like into it. This is why this band is important, because they're not just reaching one audience. Other types of people are listening to them and going, man, I like this, man, these guys can play. These guys sound good.
He ran till he came to the farmer's pen. The ducks and the geese picked up their rain. He said, a couple of you are gonna grease my tin before I leave this town. No, town, no, town, no. A couple of you are gonna grease my tin before I leave this town. No.
Playing instruments based on listening to Nickle Creek, and that's gratifying because kids are saying, I don't have to just stick in a CD, I can make music myself. I don't have to only listen to other people's expression.
Well, ring the bell, hard to deliver anything you're gonna sell. Try hard, get far, get back, a work braille, get chill, jump bill, to the army if it fails. Look out, kid, you're gonna get hit. Users, cheaters, 6-time losers, hang around the theater. Girl by the whirlpool, looking for a new fool, but don't follow leaders and watch a park of meters.
It's really fun to see all these kids come to shows and have us sign their instruments or have them say that, you know, they're starting to take lessons. And I really hope that there becomes much more music emphasis in schools. So it's neat to maybe be a part of inspiring some kids.
Expanding the audience by including all the people their age. They're a pop group, but they're using these traditional instruments. They can go to the traditional tunes, and the stuff just has so much integrity compared to a lot of the stuff that these, you know, young kids are hearing.
The really great musicians who push into the future, I've found, are the ones who know the most about the past. And in the case of Nickle Creek, you have that. And someday there will be bands that only want to sound like Nickle Creek, you know, and then this is just a continuum.
I disagree with the traditionalists and the moldy figs they call themselves on that point that it's dying, that there's no one to carry it on. It's great to see somebody like Nickle Creek that can take it on, you know, and they take us with them.
form of what you love, and in our case, we love music, but, you know, I really feel like we're just taking bits and pieces of everything that we love and putting it together. Maybe you wind up getting really lucky and creating a little piece of something yourself. Most people never do, you know, and the people that do are people like Bach, you know, who find who find a little piece of something that's theirs, and that's what we're striving for.